We have Peter Gay. She's got the top stories making the news this week. Peter, what's up?
Hi, Enka. As you know, the big day this week was Budget Day on Monday, in which Premier and Finance Minister Dr. D. Orlando Smith made his fifth budget presentation. He unveiled a budget for the 2017 fiscal year of $323 million. There were two new revenue earners unveiled on Monday. That of a road maintenance fee, which will be collected when persons go to license their vehicles, as well as an environmental levy, which will be paid at the airport. That the legislation for that was passed a few months ago, and it's expected, from what we've learned here at JTB News, that that measure will be implemented in the first quarter of this year. There was also another revenue measure which isn't new, it existed before, that of the cruising permit fee, which will also be hiked. The Premier also spoke heavily about the financial services sector, Enka, because as you know, that is one of the main pillars of the BVI economy. Now, he said the government is working to reposition the financial services industry as a result of recent developments internationally, such as global regulatory changes, new restrictions, and bad press coming out of that Panama Papers leak. Now, the Premier also spoke about the downturn in revenue from the financial services sector, which he alluded to last December when he gave his national address. He says for 2016, it's expected that the financial services sector will rake in some $170 million, and that's down from $175 million in 2015. Now, since the Premier's administration will be repositioning the financial services, what are some of the measures being put in place to bolster the financial services sector? The Premier says a framework is in the final stages to establish the equivalent of a central registry in collaboration with the UK government regarding beneficial ownership. He said the government recognizes the need for a more business-friendly environment, and to this end, Cabinet has signed off on the creation of an investment and promotions agency in 2017 to facilitate the diversification of the local economy, as well as to make the BVI economy more attractive. Other measures discussed regarding bolstering the financial services sector: an MOU has been signed to provide training for more persons to gain employment in the financial services sector. And this will include not just training, but work experience and mentorship to strengthen their qualifications. The Premier also revealed that later this week, he should receive the findings of a study from Capital Economics Research Group in the UK, and that study is supposed to inform his administration as well as us here in the BVI as to the value of the BVI financial services sector for the global economy. The Premier also revealed that Cabinet has approved a small coordinating unit in his office to be led by a director of financial services who will take office in a few weeks, and that person will basically coordinate the efforts to enhance the territory's financial services model.
Quite a mouthful there, Peter Gay. Did we get any information about the activities that the government is putting in place to generate revenue, their trips to Asia and the establishment of offices there and all the other aspects of the financial services that they're trying to facilitate and implement? Did they give any projections of how that would help to generate more revenue? They expect that. What did they have any expectations?
No details in terms of Asia and broadening out the financial services revenue income in the global sphere. That, I suspect, is to come in further communication with the public. But he did speak about diversifying and enhancing or amplifying the global campaign as it relates to the local tourism product.
Okay. And he didn't say anything about other industry development as far as diversification, economic diversification?
Well, in terms of economic diversification, he did speak briefly, so there isn't much to report in terms of meat of the matter about health tourism and the fact that the territory is moving in that direction to broaden the tourist offerings, and that income from that will help to offset the operations at Peebles Hospital. And so there's not much meat in terms of to report, in terms of what will be happening there. So of course, since that's a major plank of diversification going forward, of course, we expect more information to be revealed in ensuing months.
Because a few months back, the Deputy Premier talked about the fishing industry as another industry in terms of economic diversification. So I was hoping to hear some progress being made on that front.
Briefly, he did speak, that is the Premier did speak about agriculture and plans there, but not much again to report. He also spoke in terms of diversifying and providing support for the local business sector. He spoke about business incubator to be set up and additional resources via support from his administration to be provided for small, micro and medium-sized enterprises.
Well, that's good news. I was hoping to hear something about a strengthening of the National Business Bureau, so that sounds like that's in that direction. So that's great. Something else you got? Anything else you got there for us, Peter K? That certainly is interesting.
Actually, I do. Now, another plank of the Premier's speech spoke to the controversial airport expansion project, and as you know, this has been a hot topic over in recent months here in the British Virgin Islands. Now, the Premier reiterated the benefits of this project for the economy in terms of the financial services, the tourism industry, enhancing access to the BVI to cut down costs and to broaden employment opportunities and business opportunities as well. He also went on to highlight that his colleagues also have concerns about the project, but at the end of the day, what he said was that it's expected to have a minimum negative impact on the BVI's economy. The Premier also made it clear that the right, as he put it, managerial and accountability systems will be put in place to monitor the project over its duration. And he did itemize some of the findings of the business plan and economic study that has been done to validate the benefits of this expansion for the BVI. Let's take a look.
That expansion, Madam Speaker, is a costly undertaking, and even among my colleagues there's a concern that this project would not allow them to always have discretionary funds for other simultaneous infrastructure spending, which is extremely important and entirely necessary. However, the airport extension is a must for our own economic survival. The business plan and economic study, around which argument for the airport expansion project is based, demonstrates that within the first year of the construction of the airport, the BVI should directly realize in excess of a 5% increase in gross domestic product over what we would have realized if we do not embark on this project. And within 3 years of the commencement of the project, projections show a difference in excess of 20% improvement in GDP with the airport expansion as opposed to negative growth without it. Madam Speaker, this is a reality that we cannot ignore. An added injection into the economy within a 5-year period of almost $500 million. I should also make it clear that the people of the BVI will play an integral role in the construction of this pivotal project. My government holds to the view that our people must, without question, participate meaningfully in the economic advancement of the territory. Any discussion of my government intending to do otherwise in the developmental journey of this territory amounts to malicious propaganda.
And to add to that, Edu Enka, in news just into our newsroom, Shari De Castro, former Miss BVI and former VIP candidate, has told our newsroom that she is launching an appeal to the Premier to stage a town hall meeting to facilitate further discussion with the public about this airport expansion project before the deal is signed and sealed with the CCCC.
Well, that's certainly some interesting statements there by the Premier. In making the case, what I like to hear is data, of course, and he certainly has given some interesting figures about the increase or the growth of gross domestic product, and you know those are projections, of course, that we hope we would realize. And he said that he's going to make sure that local businesses participate in the development of the territory, and certainly we're hoping that he means the building of the airport project, because that is really a hot issue. Another hot issue is whether we can in fact afford to do the airport at this time. Did he say anything about whether we could afford to do it? I heard him say we may not, he inferred that we may not be able to continue as much infrastructure development as we've been doing in the past, but we need to get the airport if we're not to be left behind competitively. Any clarification on?
In a nutshell, he basically just said that at the end of the day, the executing this project will not in any way severely impact the finances of the territory, and that in the long run, the benefits from the expansion project will validate why this project was necessary. And funny enough, the opposition leader, Julian Fraser, in an interview that we did with him immediately following the budget, backed the Premier regarding the importance of this project for the economy. However, they parted ways regarding having the Chinese execute the project.
Okay, so we look forward to some more developments as far as the airport project is concerned. That's two great stories. And I know we had the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force meeting at the Stickit. Anything came out of that?
Actually, the meeting at the Stickit, which was led by the police commissioner in concert with community leaders, activists, and political representatives, actually went very well and had a decent turnout. He supported statements that the Premier himself made during his budget presentation about additional resources coming for the police force. He started by pointing out that while crime went down for 2016 by some 4%, detection went up. And he went at length to appeal to persons, not just in Longloop, but across the BVI, to work with the police, communicate with the police the information that they have about crime. Don't just sit and watch. Sit, watch, but call us so that we can help you, and we can help to protect you when you give us this information. He also made it clear to criminals in the BVI that the police were watching and knew who some of them were, so they need to be on their P's and Q's. This is what he said.
And I can tell you that there are unsolved murders in this territory where we are fully aware of who we think the most likely suspect of those murders are. And if any of those people who know they did it are listening to this tonight or subsequently in any radio rebroadcast or in any publication, start looking over your shoulders. Because I'm serious. We know the names of some of these people. We know where they live. We just haven't got the evidence yet. We need you to speak up and say what you know. Indeed, I say worse to those that say nothing. You are condoning murder, robbery, and serious crime. Do not condone it by turning a blind eye.
There you have it, Edjo.
Yeah, Commissioner sound good. That sound really good. I always have a good relationship with the police, and I've had some occasion to interact with them on one arrest of a young person, and I know of arrest of two other young people. And I'm sensitive to this because I've spent many years in the United States, and I know that the politicians in the United States have created laws where they were incarcerating young African American men for small possession of marijuana and other minor infractions and so on. Infractions where I have personally witnessed them in other communities, for example, in the white community, where they would talk to the parents of the young person, and they would work it out, and the person would have to get a criminal record. And I'm concerned about the increase in arrest of young persons here in the BVI for small, like for a joint, a small altercation in the home, and so on. And then those young men, particularly young men, get a criminal record, and it ruins your life, really, just for that a small thing. And of course, I'm not condoning marijuana smoking, nor am I condoning people breaking the law. But I think the police, in order to develop that trust and love in the community, the love for the police in the community, should realize that when you come in with a heavy hand, you're affecting many families. And while the families might know their kids are breaking the law, no family wants their child to be arrested and stuck with their lawyers' fees and incarceration, especially for things that could be avoided and the police has discretionary judgment that they could apply. So, I want to say what we should, of course, help the police. We should make sure we identify those criminals, the hard criminals, but I think the police can apply a more social work approach, if you will, to some of the incidences that I see them taking a staunch, heavy hand approach to and deal with our young men, particularly our young people, in a way where we can correct them, give them a second chance, talk to them, and complain to their parents, find out who their parents are, have their parents talk to them, so that we could have develop a love and a trust, more of a love and a trust for the police. And I don't think that we don't trust the police now. We perhaps have some challenges in terms of some officers. We might be concerned about sharing information where they shouldn't. But I think that has mostly been rectified with the numbers and new numbers and so on that the police have for us to call to give information. So we certainly should support the police, but I think the police can understand the social aspect of police community policing. And that's what I'm hoping that we could come to, where it's not fear of police, but love of police. I think that should be our goal. Great stories, Peter Gay.